So Mary Ann won't be here tonight?
No,
I
she
gotta
won't be
switch
here this
chairs.
week or next week because of her surgery.
Does she have
What's she
complete
done
knee
for her knee?
replacement or
Total knee?
partial?
She
How do
just
you
said
do-
knee
How
replacement.
do you
I
do
didn't-
part
Total
of
knee.
it? How do you do part of
Yeah,
one?
yeah,
I never.
If you're, I mean, not to sound terrible, but at her age, I would do a total. If it was me, I wouldn't do a partial. A partial, they'll just like clean up and like stuff.
Felt
But
like I was gonna fall off that.
Well,
But what is the total? Is it?
so the whole thing, yeah. And they put the whole new fake joint
I
in.
had a total.
You had a total? So you would put off a metal detector, right?
No, they took all the metal out.
Elliot?
Hey, Elliot.
Hello, Ellie.
Oh, did you bring
Elliot,
the
how are you?
bring the
Pittsburgh Press with you?
I got it in the car.
Oh, okay,
What?
just joking with you.
What I
Because it took you
missed?
so long to get here.
Well, you know what? There was a,
Car
fire
Follow
department-
the salt truck.
What happened?
Car flipped over on Shooty.
On Shooty. Yeah, so once I go down to Shooty, then that's like 15 minutes to backtrack up the, up Prospect and all that, so. I missed all the fun, huh?
No, we didn't have any fun.
No?
We were waiting for you.
Oh, God.
It never stops.
I'll get the paper for you. This is good. That was a good addition.
Just read it online.
No.
Moving?
That chair is really.
Is it that bad?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just
Yeah, you
feels
wanna
like I'm gonna
switch?
fall out of it.
We got somebody that's not
How you
here.
doing?
No, Mary Ann won't be here, I'll just sit here.
And then next
Yeah,
week,
that was missing a screw on
they
the
should,
side.
they,
Oh,
chair
yeah.
you sit on
So
that
that's
chair.
the one I
It's
usually
over
put
here.
in the,
Oh, the arm's missing a
So when it
bolt.
goes
I don't
from the
know.
that's the one I
outside.
put in the corner, it should be over there.
Give it to the
You
video
should be
guy.
sitting in
That's
that.
good, no, I'm good.
No, then you know what, the women's club comes in, and then other groups come in and they move the chairs around.
Well, you know what,
and
some
I'm
people are
I
like
gotta-
that,
I
you
always
know?
gotta come in and test them on. I
What
didn't have
time's your classes there?
time to-
5 to 7:30.
Oh, that's easy.
Oh, which I was so excited walking in today. They showed me the room where like all the toys and body parts and stuff are. I was so excited.
That's awesome.
To see the body parts.
5 in the morning.
You know, we're on
No,
camera
5
here,
at night.
you don't wanna be talking about
Fake body parts.
Oh, I did that part out.
Where did she go?
Health
Yeah,
department.
I'm excited.
So one night a week?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to start at. Just
So
one
that's
night a week.
one credit?
Yeah.
You leave the budget.
No, it's part
Yeah,
of
the accountants were on.
the nursing 130 lecture. So I think it's like 5 credits.
Paul, how are you, sir?
Good, man. How are you?
Big write-up
Get my
in
feet
the
wet.
side.
Yeah.
I finished my master's up in December, and this is what I want to do. So
So you're getting paid for 5 credits?
no, I'm an
No,
hourly
it didn't
adjunct
mention that at
faculty.
all. But it talks about like,
It's a lot of money.
so many cards for X amount of dollars, so many faces.
Well, when I teach at community college for the year,
So
I
many
think I
electronic
made
cards.
$10,000.
And then it says what
Doing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I get, they pay me once a month.
Yeah. Once a month.
At the end of the month, and usually I get a check for
No one was stuck.
11
It's just,
or
the
1200
traffic
bucks.
was horrible.
So,
Even on
I'm
Church
pretty
Street, like
excited.
when Cindy picked me
Yeah.
up the bus
Yeah.
stop,
It's gonna be fun.
Church was
yeah.
Then I walked down
way
home,
up.
found the graduating, because they do a composite of all the nurses, so I
Good.
could take a picture,
Yeah.
show my kids.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick, while you have your attention, we've got 2 brand-new wireless mics here. If your neighbor is a pen clicker, elbow them, because it will
This
pick
one.
up. It will pick up in the
I'll throw
mic. If they're
candy at 'em.
playing drums like Krupa, elbow them again, because it will pick up. We're not trying to win an Emmy, but it just it sounds better. So we're gonna try it tonight and see what happens. The setup's really fast, so you guys can do your executive session without having me do all the
I
cables.
wondered what that
Nice.
little deal was. That's
Yeah,
cute.
yeah,
He played with Benny Goodman.
yeah. Thank you.
Gene Krupa.
Gene Krupa?
Yeah.
He was the one that suggested they play King Porter Stomp out at the Palomar.
So Paul, you're on with the pen clicker.
No names, please.
For some reason, that clock's a minute off.
You like crooking your pen.
I do.
You
And
do.
he drums too.
Yeah, I have a lot of nervous habits.
Here, where's
I
his
just have
pen?
a lot of
Where's his
nervous
pen? Where's his pen? You have a pen?
I do.
Good, you don't have a pen. That's your pen.
There's no clicker.
Give me that pen. I
People
gotta
in-
put it over here. Put that
People in
away.
our office say, like, oh, I can hear you coming, cause I'm walking through the office.
Yeah.
So the woman that's like, answers our phone and everything.
How
Yeah.
excited
So
are
when I
you?
go up to see her, I carry two pens
The
and I go
snow.
like this.
Do me a favor, put those in your pocket, use that one. You can pretend like you're
Every
clicking
time it
it.
snows, I think of you.
My mind goes like a million miles an hour, you know, it's always going.
It's a winter
My wife's like,
wonderland.
what are you thinking?
Yeah.
What are you thinking of? It's like, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
Degrees for the high. It's ridiculous.
1 minute remaining in the pool.
Can we start without solicitor? Who's Gavin this week?
Gavin's on his way,
Okay.
and
Penguins goaltending.
he said he'd be here on time, but
It seems to be the week.
Gavin.
Does he bring in brownies?
There should be no excuse.
no.
Right?
They have,
Offensively.
Why, did you put in an order?
Well,
Yeah.
they have two good goalies, they're just not here.
yeah.
Yeah,
There's-
one's in Wheeling and one's in Wilkes-Barre.
Well, the
They say that Wheeling team's amazing.
both of them in Wilkes-Barre are pretty good.
You have Larson and Woodward. But then you got that Murrayshop down in Wheeling. He's like 14.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Over there.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, Mr. Farrick.
Mrs. Boyer,
Here.
Mrs. Conley, Mr. Edgar,
Here.
Mr. Hayhurst.
Here.
Mr. Rambo,
Here.
Mr. D,
Here.
Mrs. Bryan,
Here.
Mayor DePratis.
Here.
Jason Stanton, Gavin Robb, they're both stuck in traffic on their way. Robert Farrick is here, and Chief Cortazzo.
Here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Farrick. Up next, audience agenda. Anyone in the audience have any items relating to the agenda they'd like to speak on? Seeing as we have no audience, probably due to the weather, we'll move on to the engineer's report, but I think we'll just skip that for a minute and give Jason a chance to get
Yeah,
here
I
and
told him
come
to.
back to that. Same with the solicitor's report, so we'll move on to the mayor's report with Mayor DePratis.
I will give my report next week's meeting.
Okay.
Wow, on me
Do
already.
you have everything, Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do not have anything.
Okay, moving right along then to administration with Mr. Farrick.
I wasn't thinking I was gonna be first.
Oh, sorry.
Moving right along.
When Jason gets here, I'm gonna delay the item that I had on here regarding the pool. Him and I are gonna go back and forth on that, so we'll push that to the end until he gets here. Want to go over fire department consolidation. Consolidation process, as we mentioned last month, is anticipated to be completed near the end of the first quarter of this year. I do believe that is still the case at this point. The Fire Recruitment and Retention Committee, nothing new to report due to the holidays, but we will gather after we have our tri-community fire discussions, which is scheduled for Thursday, January 30th at 6:30 p.m. That is confirmed, and that will be at Whitehall Station number 1 on Route 51. That'll be the fire committee. We have Mayor Mr. D and Mrs. Brown, along with myself and our counterparts in Brentwood and Whitehall. Whitehall apparently is, I'm not sure who all's coming from their fire department, but I know that definitely the fire chief is going to be there, and same as the fire chief for Brentwood. So I don't know, Butch, if you want me to reach out to Dave, or it's up to you guys who we bring from the fire department on that end. I could just reach out to Dave Calmer, or do you want me to reach out to all three? What, how do you guys want to handle that?
I think at least if Dave's there probably, and if he can't make it,
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, maybe Dave and Joe Krill both.
Okay. I'll reach out to both of them then.
but I won't make it.
Thursday the 30th, no good. And that is, like I mentioned, at Whitehall's station number 1, which is the fire hall on Route 51.
Sounds to me like that could be the first night that the students get out early.
We'll see.
Log cabin update. Well, I was supposed to meet with that gentleman today at 2 o'clock, canceled due to the weather. So I've got to reach back out to them and see what our new revised schedule. So it was looking promising. I was really excited, but yeah, with the cold and the snow, that was a no-go. So we're still waiting on that. Conditional use hearing. There will be a conditional use hearing next week at the council's regular meeting for the potential Valvoline oil station location at 5301 Clareton Boulevard. That's the old Berkshire Hathaway building across Fidelity Drive from First Watch. It faces, fronts Clareton Boulevard. The conditional use is to seek relief from the requirement of 2 acres that are required for what their purpose is, their intended use on that. And currently they have slightly over half an acre. They will be attending the zoning hearing board meeting this Thursday, and depending on how that goes, we may or may not have the conditional use if they don't get the anticipatory relief from the zoning hearing board. Then they will probably pull their application. If they do get granted their relief there, then they will be in front of council next week on Tuesday. So we won't know until after that meeting on Thursday night.
Baldwin, if we do have a meeting, is it, we just gonna, still 7 o'clock?
Yeah, it'll still be 7 o'clock. That'll be the first item on the agenda. Because it is conditional use, we have a court reporter scheduled for that. Even if they pull it, we would just, they would just be a no-show for the conditional use, and we would just move on to the next item on the agenda.
Is that an ad location for them? I mean, is that, or are they moving the one from
No,
Pleasant? Or is it
yeah,
an additional?
yes, then in addition to the one that is on Pleasant Hills, it's literally 2 miles down the road.
Right.
Their theory is that the one in Pleasant Hills is on the outbound location, and this will be on the inbound location.
Okay.
So I guess they have their studies that show that they need that.
Interesting.
Next item I have is resolution number 2025-01-01 will be the vehicle lease for the police chief to have that. We do have that purchase being taken care of, I think technically the day after our meeting next week. So that will be on for your consideration, as well as, and that is in the budget. Next item is resolution number 2025-0102. Conditional use for the fee increase. We discussed that at the December agenda meeting. That'll increase the conditional use fee from $350 to $500. And like I mentioned, that hadn't been increased since at least 2013. I couldn't find anything further back when it started, but that's when that number seemed to show up, but I couldn't find anything before that. So we're over 12 years old on that fee increase. And until Jason gets here, I'm going to defer the discussions on the pool, so we could, that'll be temporarily the end of my report until we get to the pool discussion.
Okay, thank you,
We'll go
Mr.
back to
Fair. Any questions for Mr. Fair? Okay, hearing none, we'll go back to the solicitor with Mr. Rob for your
Yes,
report.
but I apologize to everybody for being late. The city does not do the same job on the roads as the Borough of Baldwin. I can tell you that. It was fantastic, but only the last section. So I have nothing to report for the regular portion of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Moving on then to finance with Mr. Hayhurst.
Thank you, Madam President. We've all received the revenue expenditures report for the month of December 2024. Revenue for the year for property taxes is a little bit over $7.3 million in revenue. It's about 98.9% of the total budgeted amount. Earned income tax, we actually were a bit over the estimated 3.2. We're at about 3.25. County taxes were about 92, a little over 92% of that, the budget amount. We exceeded the real estate transfer tax that we adjusted back when we did the mid-year review. We adjusted that down to 250, and we actually ended up at about 285. So that was good. We got a little bit of bump. From an expenditure perspective, we're at about 99.26% of the annual expenditure budgeted amount. There's probably a little bit coming in sometime through the end of this month into early February that would adjust some of the numbers for the year end 2024. We'll take a look at that when they come in. That's my report if there are any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hayhurst. Any questions for him? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to Public Works with Mr. Rambo.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll give my formal report next week, but I'll kick it to Mr. Lubin. And I'd also echo the Public Works team. They've been doing a great job.
Thank you.
I mean,
Yes, they have.
everyone I talked to, yeah, it's
Definitely.
Terrific.
it's like it's like the streets are heated or something. I don't know
I think
what's
they are.
going
We put a
on there.
thermal heat
Yeah.
under all these. I'm gonna stand over here tonight.
We're gonna use
since
warm
we have
quarters
warm.
next week.
Is that right?
Well, thank you and good evening all. And Gavin, I'll give you that $5 I owe you. Nice comment. Beginning of the year, try to keep it short and sweet, but I started looking at the road program for 2025. I started that review last month, looking at the rollovers from last year, ones that didn't get selected, plus some additional ones that we'll look at for this year. Moving on to just a general project utility overview from a bird's eye view, stuff that we've rehashed all through last year. The ones that will be prominent this year that would affect a lot of us will be the work that's going to be done on the Streets Run Road project. Remember, they're going to be doing shoulder work and drainage and guardrail and stuff from Brownsville all the way down to 85. Well,
Yes.
all the way down,
Yep.
yeah. And Lebanon Church, you've got that whole corridor from roughly the near where the Target is all the way down to Nativity, roughly that area. And then on Beck's Run Road, you still have that project that's going to continue to go on for all this year. And there's also some talks of Columbia Gas now trying to piggyback on some of that work to get in the ditch lines there, which makes sense. I just don't know where they are in the game on that. We haven't got much more. Hot topic lately, the Churchview Ave thing. We had a major water break, which I'm sure you were all aware of. Caused a lot of grief for the police and emergency vehicles and so on and so forth. PA Water did get out there. It's been a problem area for them. It's been leaking on and off. They've been out a couple times. But that's that specific area, and you're aware of the other area behind, from Willett all the way down to Sankey, that area. I did get some information that Casper Colosimo is looking at doing some additional restoration there before we actually go into paving, which will be in the spring. So, you know, fingers crossed that everything will be okay for the next few months, but with this extreme wet, extreme cold, freeze thaw, potholes are gonna pop up, things are gonna separate, you're gonna start noticing a lot more in these next few weeks. So we'll keep up with the pothole side best we can. It's the winter mix, but right now, as you know, we're in snow globe mode, so we're continuing forward. So that's a pretty good overview of the utility work that's been going on, and just as a reminder of some of the larger scale ones that'll be ongoing. And also, I forgot about the one that's from all the way down by Route 43. When you start all the way down there in Jefferson Hills, it's going all the way to basically the tunnel, almost to the Liberty Tunnel, down by that way.
Correct, yeah.
That work's gonna be starting this year too, so there's gonna be a lot of activity in this quadrant, so. Not good for all of us, but it's the price we have to pay for moving forward. Held a end of year review, holiday luncheon with staff, went over well. Kind of just did a little revamp of last year, obviously, and then some goals and expectations for the 2025 anticipated things that we're gonna have on our docket to get done. For that, just a couple miscellaneous things. I would be remiss if I didn't go over, we had 5 winter maintenance call-outs for overtime in the month of December, and we had several days of just ongoing winter maintenance activity. So 5 call-outs and the rest for that. We began our first salt order in December, the end of December. We started that. As you can see, we need it. For the year in review, 2024, oddly enough, we exceeded the precipitation rain amounts by a little over 4 inches higher than average, but we were well below in the precipitation snow amount, about 23 inches below average. In that, we talked a
Catching
little.
up now.
What's that? Yeah, well, we're making up for it. So, one of the things, a little update on, we talked about some final costing for that project, an emergency sanitary sewer job over on Keyport. I know that Elliot had, really was on that one to find out a little bit more about that. It came in, we talked a little bit north of 50, and it's about 58,506 is what that came in at. But with that, there was hauling, dump site, bypass pumping, excavating equipment, materials, 6 days of of emergency work, special shoring, additional shoring, things of that nature, traffic control. So all in all, the time and material was the way to go with that particular job, and they did a pretty good job. And you see them around it. That's Casper Coliseum with CCSI, excuse me. One of the, something that's been brought up that we've been looking at, we've been trying to find out internally, just want to give you a quick update. If you all remember the film recycling program that we got into, that the young gentleman was here and he had a support sponsor from Whitehall Lions Club. Since November, been trying to get some updated information to see where we are with that. Had some more conversations with Mary Ann Bellis, is her name, I believe, is the last name Bellis. She was the sponsor from the Whitehall Lions department. She's been trying to get information too. She's gonna, as soon as she finds out, she'll let us know. But they have been coming here to pick up the film recycling. Every week they're here picking it up. So it is a program that's worthwhile. It is being utilized. So hopefully we should be getting close to that 1 year goal, because we're coming up on that 1 year anniversary, and that was 1,000 pounds of material. They were hoping for 500 pounds per every 6 months. So with 1 year, we were hopefully to get that bench. And I have one last item, but it's for executive session. And other than that, that concludes my report, Madam President.
Randy, can you update our meeting with the Soccer Association yesterday?
Oh, okay. Yeah, we had the meeting with the Soccer Association. Caught me off guard with that. We were originally supposed to schedule it for about a week away. They called and they wanted to reschedule for yesterday last minute, and we accommodated them. Two young gentlemen, really nice guys, really involved. They are the president and the vice president of the association. Talked about their needs and their wants and some things, some of the trials and tribulations that they're having. They realize, or they recognize, that Baldwin Borough, like many older South Hills communities, is a difficult area to get land and to have a large, like, multi-purpose complex that they would be able to have. So they realize that it's not really in the cards here in Baldwin to find that particular land. They're going to keep looking throughout their association, maybe something in one of the other communities, but there's probably not a whole lot here that they're going to be able to do. That being said, we talked about a plan. We got on the same page about what the company, the landscape company that they had come in, that did some work for them in the fall, some revisiting work that they're going to do in the spring, and then some things that we committed to with some additional topsoil, some slit seeding, some things that they wanted us to hold off on until spring. We're going to reconvene in March. We talked about even possibly a retrofit over top of one of the larger ball fields. One of our largest ball fields that might work is down here at Lower Municipal. But that's used by the football, that's used by baseball, that's permitted out for softball. So it's hard to say exactly how much use they'd even be able to do once we go down that avenue. But when you superimpose a layout of a soccer field on there, which their thing is, used to be the thing is the professional size that they wanted. Mm-hmm. If anybody remembers the old Oakland Alameda Coliseum that they played football in, or the San Francisco Candlestick Park, where they had all the football lines in the infield over the dirt, over the pitcher's mound, if you can visualize that, that's what it would be like. Chris is there, yeah, I remember. That's what it would be like for their soccer, and they realize for their kids that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. They have played on those in a couple of them. They're not fans of those, so they're going to continue to look. They have been using a couple other complexes, but they really are. We want to coordinate the effort, and they're liking the fact that we're reaching out. We're trying to work with them on improvements at Colwood with the field conditions themselves, just in general. They also asked about. They also wanted to do a little property cleanup down there for Earth Week. Which we're going to help them out with that. I think that's about it, but it was a good meeting, and we're glad we had it. They were glad that we met with them, and we have a nice line of communication. We had a meet and greet for those individuals, so it was a meeting well received. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and I open up the floor to, I'm sorry, Jace, you in yet? Any other questions?
Yeah, Randy, so could you just kind of give us an update on everything salt? How much, not how much we've used, but, our usage, how much we have left.
Yeah, so
how do you feel about it?
We actually increased, if you recall, I mentioned that we had that real nice notification from the Department of General Services that said, well after everybody had to commit to their salt, that said, hey, we've done some thinking here in the office, and we decided you no longer are gonna receive the salt that you have in storage, you're not gonna be committed to take it, you're not gonna be committed to pay for it, and you won't have to pay a storage fee. So they basically took those 700 tons and removed them from our coffers that we were counting on when we look at all of our yearly estimates. So we adjusted, I adjusted our seasonal estimate accordingly, thinking we had this 700 tons in, and then, of course, they changed that. So then we had to do some fancy dancing, and Mr. Gorski helped us out with this. We added some additional with the Cargill, which is the COG contract. He was able to get us to increase working with them. We increased our commitment with them, because that had to be in by June.
Right.
So we missed all those, we didn't say we missed, we had the right deadlines, they just changed the game on us. With that being said, we are in snow ordering mode. We've been, routinely there. We are at about 40%, roughly 44% of our commitment number. So we still have a ways to go, and then we have the maximum on top of that. So,
You ready to go back to Mr. Stanton for the engineer's report?
Yeah, might as well.
Okay.
I could give you the municipal road report of about 30 municipalities between here and,
We're still the best, right?
no question.
I'm gonna tell you
No
right
question.
now, after what you went through, you better eat that bowl of candy.
Thank you, Madam President. You got a copy of our monthly memorandum pertaining to sanitary sewers. The contracts that council awarded at our December meeting are ready and are here for signature this evening. Making progress in collaboration with Administration of Public Works on both the Rear Leona and the Missionary Drive sewer projects are on page 3. Not a lot to update on our MS4 program. Those contracts are completed, and Ms. Caitlin now has access to the grant portal to get our grant funding and get reimbursed for that, so that's certainly good news to share with council. Mr. Lubin's working on the scope for the 2025 road program. It's our general thinking that it's going to follow the same timeline as last year, which worked well. Bidding in April, awarding in May, and then constructing over the summer. I'll skip the pool for now. I'll swing back to that in a minute. Salt storage building improvements, a timely discussion. The borough received one grant award for that. In October, we're going to get started on the design and preparation of the bid documents for both salt storage facilities, one being the base, the other being an ad alternate, considering that we have a grant application that's also submitted for the municipal salt building improvements. In terms of action items potentially for next week, bond reduction for Painter / Lutz Elementary School on the agenda for tomorrow. A couple other updates pertaining to the Friends of the Riverfront, and the last 3 pages are updates relative to grants. Really no new news, if you will, since our December meeting. So getting back to the poll, the language in the engineer's report pretty much the same as we left it last month, meaning that I had reported that in terms of a budget deficit, meaning the cost of the 2 contracts, the mechanical improvements that was bid in November and a general construction that was due in December. When you take our general fund budget allocation and our remaining grant funding, there was still a delta of about $870-some thousand. Okay. The way we left it in December was council requested to identify some options associated with cost control and different things like that. And the table that I believe was attached to the engineer's report.
Yep, last page.
Attempts to go through that. And so at the top of that table, there's the base option, and that's as currently bid. That was as discussed in December. And so the first concept that Randy, Bob, and I, and our staff looked at was, okay, let's just go bare bones. What do we save? Do we save enough that we eliminate the budgetary shortfall? So that's cost reduction option number one, meaning that in the scope is the ADA ramp, in the scope is the zero entry, in the scope is the pull liner and the mechanicals. What's eliminated from that scope is eliminate the diving board, eliminate the double barrel slide, eliminate the spray features in the zero entry. This alternative includes conduit for future lighting. It doesn't include any of the lighting, poles, bases, lights, wiring. Doesn't include any of that, and it has our public works doing the restoration. Okay, so bare bones. If you work that table across, that still leaves us with a shortfall of about $419,000. The good news is it saves us about $457,000 if we were to take those elements off. And as we started thinking through that, you know, now that we've been closed for 2 seasons, that might not be a preferred option, if you will. So we took a look at cost reduction option number 2. And again, everything's the same. We just eliminated the diving board this time, eliminated the double barrel slide, and included half of the spray features in a zero entry. There's 11 in there now, so we included 6 of those. Includes the conduit, but no lighting posts. DPW does the lawn restoration. Certainly we don't save as much as the prior option, and we're still at a budget outfall of about $590,000. Okay. So we have some amenities in that option. Not a lot, but we have some. And then we took that to another option that, let's say the diving board has been there for eons, we want the diving board. The slide has been there for a while, we want the sliding board. We're willing to cut back on the spray features in a zero entry, and we're good with deferring the lighting to some point in the future, and we're good with Public Works doing the lawn restoration. That option, we still need supplemental budget to make that happen of about $680,000 round numbers, but we saved $197,000 from the bids that were currently opened. So that's where we looked at in terms of cost control, and you know, from there Bob and Caitlin did some evaluation, and I guess that at this point I'll turn it over to Bob. The only point that I want to make is that those contracts that were bid, particularly the mechanical one that was bid in November, it has a 90-day bid hold period that's coming to an end, and at some point, preferably the meeting next week, we need to make a decision whether or not we're going to award at least that contract. And if you award that contract, there's some element of the general construction that you want to award as well. So with that being said, that's the cost control aspect of the alternative analysis, and I'll defer to Bob on the others.
Could I ask you a question before we go to that? Zero entry, that means we're just walking in, right?
Yes, where the steps are, from
0
that
inches of water
sidewalk grade.
to 2 feet of water.
Like walking in the ocean or the
Correct.
river or something.
Yeah,
Okay,
100%
so
correct.
the spray feature, what's that look like?
There's a couple separate. I think there's 3 or 4 geysers that essentially, as you're walking in the zero entry, it sprays water up on you. Really popular with the kids.
So it wouldn't be in the water, it would be
No, it would
right
be in
before
the
you
water.
come.
It would be in the
In the
water.
In the water.
It'll be in the zero entry at a certain depth
At a certain-
and bubbling up out of there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
That'd be a geyser, there's a rainbow that the kids could crawl through that sprays water actually down on toddlers.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a bucket
The bucket
Yeah.
dumps.
bucket dumper, if you will.
So all the cost to that is the piping underneath?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Piping the pumps, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yes.
there's no savings to rough in 12, because rough in is all the work.
Yes.
Rough ends all
Yes.
the work.
Yeah.
You
So,
save a few dollars on the procurement of those features, but the vast majority of the cost is a roughing in of those. And they each have to have their own supply line and return line.
okay.
So providing those spray
There's one
features,
pump
there,
for every, for all the spray feature? There isn't small pumps for each,
correct. There's one pump.
one pump for all?
Yeah, it's
For
a
that.
system that, all right, we're including this, and then that, or this and this, so that pump, system, if you will, gets bigger or smaller based off of that, and that'll be in the mechanical.
And are they on all the time, or do they run on a timer?
No, they would be on
They'd be
all
on
the time, yeah,
during-
just
like
like the
during pull
pool,
hours,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when the pool's done, it shuts down.
As far as the diving board and the slides, how much are those separate?
The slide procurement, I believe, was 57,000.
Okay,
The diving board's less than that, and I think it was 28.
okay, so they're not even that, because I was just thinking, we've gotta have one or the other, or both, because we can't have everything for the toddlers and nothing for the big kids.
Agreed.
We can't do that.
Is the pool projected to be done in 2025? Maybe
Yes.
not open, but complete?
Yeah.
Yes,
The,
yes, the contract has in there a deadline completion of December 31st, 2025. So that we would know, pool's
Yeah,
done,
the next
we can
spring.
go out and get the procurement contract for the pool management,
For the lifeguards and everything.
lifeguards, et cetera. We don't wanna,
My question was, if it was gonna go into 2026, could we budget some of this stuff in 2026 for the completion
Yeah.
to open in 2026?
yeah, we looked at that, but we already had that in the contract
Okay.
because we were trying to make sure if we do open, we didn't wanna be last minute trying to get a pool management, and we don't get that, so then we are closed because we don't have anybody to operate the pool.
In my mind now, I'm set to hear about the financial then.
Anybody else, questions for Jason?
No.
All right, Jason did a great job of outlining, okay,
Beautiful.
if we do this, what do we wanna do? And here's the monies we're short. Or, the other option obviously is to completely nix the pool. And we kind of went down that road as well, but, so what I did is, before I get to the, stuff that Caitlin and I reached out to the financiers, the bank, I reached out to Nick Piscatana's office. Now that he's a state senator, because he's a state senator, they they get more monies from the state government than the state reps do. So I reached out to him, being very friendly with him and his staff. They sent over some information and said, hey, we're in the middle of a transition. Send over us what you got, and I told them, what we've got in grants, what we're short. And they said, give us a little bit of time, and we'll get back to you. And that was right after the first of the year here, so I haven't heard back from them yet, but they are very active in looking. They sent over a form, filled out a form, that had some information it needed, sent it back over to them. So hopeful. I told they did say, hey, you already got the largest grant that's out there, which is the LSA grant at $600,000. So I'm not hopeful that we're going to get a lot more, but maybe we will. And not only that, I also figured, well, I've reached out previously last year to Summer Lee's office, who is our U.S. representative, and asked them at that time, hey, we're looking for some pool stuff, grants, anything. And they never really got back to me, but he did get back to me actually when I reached out again after the last meeting. He did. I just got the email today. Said, hey, yeah, we're still looking. If you are still in the need of funding, and said yes. And they also wanted to have Summerlee come in at one of our meetings, so I will read through the weeks that she's available, because she is in DC a lot, when her availability is, that matches up with any of our meetings, and I'll let everybody know that, you know, if she's coming. But, so I've reached out to them as well, you know, they looking for some money, so, you know, hopefully there's something out there, you know, but still, I don't see us getting, you know, even what's the smallest deficit, $400,000. So obviously we need to look at financing. Went to our PNC rep, who we've procured all of our previous bond finances with, and she was pretty upfront, saying, okay, look, what are you looking for? And I said, well, we only need $890,000. And she said, let me tell you right now, that's small, and to them that's a small amount. That small amount of money, you're gonna pay a lot more in percentages than you would if you borrowed 1.5, 2, or 2.5. I said, well, do me a favor then, and give me a, you know, breakdown of what 1.5 would be, 2 and 2.5, and she did provide a great breakdown, and she's willing to come in and talk to council at the February meeting if we do decide to go this route. So I'm gonna pass one around to everybody. She did note that if whatever we borrow, that we have to spend 85% of whatever the bond that we would borrow for in 3 years, which won't be a problem, and 100% in 5 years. And the monies have to be used for capital projects, so it isn't just the pool.
New chairs.
Bingo.
Pickleball court at Mackinac.
Well, as we talked, Caitlin and I both talked, was all the capital improvement projects that we, if you remember during the budget process, it was what can we, or what do you want to include in the budget should we not get the grants that we applied for in those. So if we don't get that, that's the monies we can utilize through this project or the other stuff. You know, any other capital improvement projects, the ones that are in the budget this year is the fencing, the sidewalk out front, and one that we nixed, which we could definitely include in that, which would be the Mackinac. That's twice that's gotten bumped, so we can, you know, do that upgrade. And if you look at and she tried to keep the debt service down, so that it wasn't as far away from our existing debt service, which is the far left-hand column. And she did a great job of presenting this in this format, and it kind of shows you where we're at. So the monies that we would have to pay back this year, we could take that, you know, I was like, okay, well, where are we getting that money? But as me and Caitlin went through it, we're like, okay, we could use the monies that we had planned for project X or Y. That money would pay that debt service off, that additional, whether it be the 44, the 57, or the 70,000. So this affords, you know, at least that opportunity, and she rolled it into our existing bond that we have out there in our existing debt service. So that's kind of where that falls in. So if you look, it keeps everything similar to close to the existing debt service that we have currently. So that if you look at those totals in under each, the 1.5, the 2, and the 2.5, the right-hand column in each one of those, that number is very close to the existing debt service that we would be paying, you know, for each year. So did a good job of showing how that is. You can see the percentages if you look down the bottom there. The interest, like she mentioned, 1.5, it's 5.14. And again, that was at the date that she gave us, which was, you can see as of January 6th. 2 million would be 4.97, goes down. 2.5 million, 4.87. So if we do go this route, you know, it's another decision. What do we want to borrow? What do we want to, you know, so the decision on, you know, which way do we want to go for the pool? Decision on which bond, you know, amount we want to go for on this. Should we go through that option? So, questions?
Yeah.
Concerns?
No, questions, just so I'm grasping this. So if we did the $2 million line, columns, in 2025, we would be responsible for $57,252 worth of debt.
Additional
debt service.
Additional, correct.
Our existing, then our debt service would be 1.752.
Correct.
Where do you see
total.
that at, Paul?
It's right in the middle.
First line
Right there.
middle.
Oh, okay,
That's incremental
okay, I
on
got
top
you,
of that.
I got you.
Yes.
Okay.
The far left-hand column is our current debt service for this year.
Okay.
So that column, that number there, and like Paul said, if you go the new debt service for this year, then if we take a $2 million bond, that will be 1,752 versus the existing.
So if we don't pay, my terminology may be bad, but bear with me. If we don't pay off the $2 million in this particular debt before 2036, our debt service is on this $2 million is $321,000.
No,
Or is that,
it would be the 1,778. That's why, if you look, each one of those numbers, she kept the total debt service wouldn't be any different.
What I'm saying is the incremental just for this $2 million.
The increase for that year, based off of, yes.
Okay, so it
yes.
balloons in 2036, so we gotta get rid of that
All right.
in 12 years.
Well, you're not gonna get rid of it, you're not gonna pay it down.
Paying principal.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
all
this is all interest
Well,
up front,
because
yeah.
we're
And,
wrapping it in all
the
kind of other.
anticipation is, if you remember, well, I'm sorry, you weren't here. We refinanced, because the percentages were great at that time, and we got an additional amount of money, so we could probably do something similar to that come that time frame. You know, that's 10 years, that's 2036, correct?
So that $2 million.
And it's for 5 years, it's a 5-year hit.
I'm sorry, you can tell me to be quiet, I'll be quiet.
No, go right ahead.
The $2 million, we're obligated to spend how much? If we took $2 million, we would.
We're obligated to spend 85% in
Okay.
3 years.
Okay,
We would use
And
initially on the pole.
You know, obviously, let's say we go the full option, 876,000 of that is gonna be used for the pool. And again, we have that capital improvement plan that has a bunch of other items on there that we've pushed off to the future, some that we have this year that we're hoping to get some grants, not knowing, are we gonna get the full grant amount, are we gonna get a partial grant amount, are we gonna get no grant amount? Until we get those awards, that money can be used for that as well. They have to go to capital projects, you can't use it for, you know, we can use it on roads if we have to. But you can't use it for salary, you can't use it for.
Can you use it for
for
upgrading
pension.
Coolwood Park?
I'm sorry?
Could you use it to upgrade Coolwood Park?
Yes, we could. Now, that would depend on what you want to do, upgrades at Coolwood Park. You know, that may not be anywhere near the monies we need.
But if we get to 2.5, it might.
Depending on what, again, what do you want to do there?
Bob, let me ask you this, so if we, any three of these options, say we do get a grant, are we able to, juggle, you know, our funds so we aren't, because certain grants you have to use for certain things, right?
Yes, whatever you apply
So
for that
do we,
grant.
I guess,
it has
do
to
we
be
have the
used for that.
flexibility if we would get some grants, you know, to maneuver?
And that's why I think the 2.5 would be, if we do something like that, then we've got to look at other projects that we may want to apply it to. Again, maybe do some more roads 1 year. Again, we got 3 years to pay 100% of this down. I'm sorry, 3 years to do 85%. 5 years to do all of it. So, you know, again, 2 is an even number. You know, we've got, you know, 1.6, I believe, to spend within 3 years.
So we have to use the whole 2.5 million to get that
If you take
rate.
it, yeah, and again, almost 890,000 are gonna go right to the pool. If you go the full boat, the full package for the pool.
What do you think we should do? Because I know you've got to be thinking it over.
Definitely, I mean, you know, whatever you wanna do on the pool, I don't have there's no preference. You know, obviously, we went down the road to do all of it. You know, do you wanna just pull back a couple items? And you know, but whatever we do, I think we should do at least, I'm in the 1.5 to 2 million range. I don't think the 2.5 is needed right this second, because, You know, there's some other projects that, you know, say you wanna borrow money, in the future, you don't wanna handcuff yourself too much with this, as well.
What are things, I think to back, you know, piggyback on what he asked, what are things that you've wanted to do that we just, it's like, absolutely not, we don't have the cash for that? Do you have any,
Yeah,
list?
Well, we cut how many out of the capital?
Yeah, there's
Three
a
or four projects.
Yeah, there's projects that are in the capital improvement
Okay.
plan that, you know, for the future, this would help, us, and it would help the, future discussions that we would have in terms of the budget and, you know, keeping the, or minimizing the increase on, you know, the tax levy, for that. This would go towards, we would be able to do those projects, like we had that, if you remember, we had the discussion. If we do this project, here's where this
Bless
debt, here's where we're gonna be deficit.
Right.
That'll keep
Right.
that, we won't
don't
have to
worry
put that
about
in
that,
there,
no.
we'll be able to do those projects. And there are other projects that we have, that we haven't even talked about yet, that are in that 5-year plan, that we're, you know, on this is only the first year we finished on that in 2024, and we've already pushed, McAnally, Park twice, you know, which was, and I can't remember the overall cost, do you remember? Yeah,
There's a couple hundred
Couple
thousand.
I would say it was
Full-blown-
two,
something.
235 comes to mind.
Full-blown.
Yeah.
It was with the trail, with the walking trail, with the
Right.
tennis court, with the pickleball, with the I'm sorry,
Right.
pickleball court, the basketball court,
Yeah.
new fencing.
We found a grant application with GEDTF
Okay.
in August for
Maybe
four
what
hundred
page it may
thousand.
be on?
Yeah.
What's
I was
that?
e-
For 400,000,
There you
we
go.
filed a
So-
grant application.
I was even thinking, is there something that we've never entertained?
Capital campaign.
Like, that's not on that capital improvements plan, but something that is like, something,
Another
yeah, a
project.
bit more out there that would like, you know, something that
Community
we would
center.
like to have.
Yeah, and community center is definitely one of
And
those.
new borough
But that,
building.
the community center
What's that,
is,
Patty?
New borough building.
But
you're
we
gonna
need a
too.
lot more.
yeah,
than
but
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
a community center and a new borough building, you're talking a lot more
A lot more
cash
money.
Oh, yeah.
than
yeah.
this.
And
Right.
frame
But,
this.
you know, I think we need to, the road program is definitely something we need to
We
play,
might be able to
catch up on some of those.
Well,
Okay.
what I'm looking at, and correct me if I'm wrong, which some of you will, but if we do the poll and put in all the things that we've been kicking around and cutting back and then putting it back in, we could do the poll with the zero walk-in,
Zero
with the
entry.
water things.
Yeah.
Would we have to raise taxes for that?
For just the pool?
Yeah.
We can't do the pool with the budget we have this year.
I understand that.
To do that, we would have to borrow, and if
And
we
if we
borrow,
borrow-
right now, we wouldn't have to raise taxes with that.
Okay,
The monies that we would utilize to pay the debt service down is monies that we would be putting into, that we would say, all right, next year, let's, using the McAnally, for instance, okay, we'll do McAnally next year. You know, we're doing an additional 72, we'll go to the 2 million, additional 94,000 versus 400 and, what was that again, Jace?
430.
$430,000. So that would actually bring that curve that we had, push that up versus drop it down. So it would help.
up until the last meeting, I was for putting in the pool at all costs, making it right, making it perfect. But when there's such a small percentage of the residents use that pool, and then you're gonna raise taxes on top of that, makes me say, do we really need a pool? We've been without one now for a while, not forever, but for a while. And then what I look at is taking the money, borrowing this money to do the pool, plus having money to go into road improvements.
Or other capital.
The roads
projects,
benefit everybody,
Right.
you know, not just like, cause I get this a lot, everything is in the north, nothing is in the south. where the rows are all through the borough.
Correct.
So if it meant taking care of that and the pool, then I have a problem with that idea.
Right, but, you know, I'm a little concerned because we came in here 800,000 in the hole, and now we're talking about other capital projects and, you know, taking out 1.5 to spend 2.5. And, you know, it's almost like we were looking for the Chevy and the bank said, well, we'll give you the brand new nice car, but we'll drop a point on the rate and we'll push it out for how long, and we'll make it affordable, don't worry, right? I mean, you know, this makes it look a lot different than raising taxes in 1 year to pay for it, right? But, which I don't agree with, but if we were to do that, that's interest-free, right? I mean, if we're taking out 1.5, and even with McEnaldy and all the other projects and the wish list, I mean, we could sit here for hours and
Right,
talk about
right.
things that we wanna do, right? But, I mean, even during budget season, there was no discussion about taking out a bond for, you know, the various projects that we talked about. And now I'm just a little concerned because, you know, the problem is the pool, and now we're saying, well, let's just kind of, pardon me, let's just kind of do everything, and now, you know, now we can do the McEnaldy, and we can do this and do that, so, you know, but,
And I see your concern. It was, if we are going to go this route, let's lessen the hits, because we do have capital projects that we have to get done. The fencing around here has to get done. If we do not get that grant, or we only get a portion of that grant, we're taking out of the general fund to pay for that right now. Similar to the other projects that we had in the capital improvement plan.
and Jason, when we talk about timeline, the 90-day window, that's for the main bid, the larger bid, right? The one over the million.
Yeah, the mechanical contract, the smaller of the two.
For the salt storage.
No, that's the other.
Both contracts have a bid hold period of 90 days, meaning
Okay.
3 months.
Right.
The mechanical contract that was bid in November, December, January, you know, we're broaching on that bid hold period. The larger contract that was bid in December, we've got, you know, theoretically another month to go on that. But the other aspect is contractor bid that, and one of the reasons why I think some of the pricing was higher last April when we bid the initial contract is contractors right now are building their backlog for the year when it's cold
Oh, no, thank you.
snowy and things like that.
Thanks, sir.
The longer we wait, the less likely it is to complete by the end of December, you know, so that we can negotiate with a pool management contract. So technically, we could wait another month for the general construction while we're deciding. But the other element is, while we're deciding, that's another month closer to next December.
Right.
But the internal contract, we have to make a decision by next week to award it, because I do believe we don't make it to the February meeting for the 90 days.
Correct.
Which one, is that PK1?
Yeah, PK1's the mechanical renovations. That's essentially storing or installing pool heater, chlorinator, replacing the innards of the piping system, basically inside the building itself. That those bids were open November 5th.
Yeah, so that would be before, our first meeting in February is the 11th.
Yeah.
So we will be beyond that. And if we award the internal contract and don't award the external contract,
That doesn't make sense.
yeah, exactly.
I got that.
And to your point, or to at least, bring up more discussion on your point, are you saying that we should be only looking at borrowing just for the pool? Because if we do award these, we don't have we're 875,000 or 76,000 deficit.
Right.
That we have to come up with cash before December to get to pay that off.
Right.
Actually, way before December, depending on how, what their process and progress is on that, because we have to pay everything up front before we get reimbursed on those grants. So the whole, what is the overall total again, Jace? 224? The 2.2.
2.24.
We have to pay that up front before we get reimbursement on that.
So same question, Bob. What do you think we should do?
If you're going to move forward with the pool, I think we need to go and go the bond route for this. And
And
if we
how
do,
much?
and if we do that, yeah, I went back and forth. When I was looking at this, what would I do? Because I anticipated this question. I was waffling between 1.5 and the 2. The 2.5, I don't believe is worth it. There are some things we could do, but I'm also looking at what can we do? How do we hurt ourselves in the future if we do, like, okay, let's move forward with a recreation building, or move forward with a new municipal building. That may hog tie us, or in the future for borrowing capacity there. So I've been leaning towards the 1.5. That's just me,
And these are all over 15 years, or at least the 1.5's over 15 years?
Yes.
I mean, was there an option to look at, taking out? I understand the rates weren't as good, going a lower amount, right? There's not
Right,
much
right.
bang for their buck
Right.
for the
Right.
bank, right? They're in business to try to make money. So, and I would be interested to look at, I don't know, the 890 over 5 years or something, and if
Just
they
do
were-
the 890 over 5 years. What we asked her to do was try and keep the existing debt service closer to
Yeah.
the,
Right.
the
Right.
new debt service, and that's kind of what she did.
No, and I get that,
So that we
It's-
don't have to.
There's no spikes and everything.
So we don't have to, if we do it that way, we may have to increase the taxes next year. The millage rate would have to go up, and then after 5 or 6 years, then we're gonna be not needing that extra millage rate, then we would cut taxes, I don't know.
If we just borrowed the 890
Correct.
because of the interest rate and the terms.
Well, if, it depends on, again, what the repayment, period would be and what the repayment amounts would be.
What about, and we may be too far down the road, but a capital program, like someone to come in and help us raise a large amount of money? I think, did somebody suggest?
Yeah,
last month maybe
I
a
looked into,
sponsor?
I actually reached out to, somebody that is went from the, political side to the, private side, and reached out to them. They're with a large bank now. I don't want to throw any names out, but I sent out an email and I didn't even get a response back. I said, hey, I'm looking for sponsorship, for the pool. I mean.
Well, there's companies that run capital campaigns to help you raise large amounts of money also.
And if you do that, though, you're paying them to do
Right.
that. And to get sponsorships, that's not too realistic, because you'd have to go, the most anybody's probably gonna give you is 10,000 to, if we're lucky, 25,000. And to borrow that amount of money, we would need 50 or 60 people, companies to donate. And, they're gonna want some sort of advertisement. It's for a pool that's open for 3 months. It's in a hole. It's below, the main road. even if we will put something on the main,
Not
advertising.
attractive for naming rights.
Yeah, I don't see anybody jumping at that chance. We're not on 51, we're not on, any main road where we got,
Why are we jumping at it then?
yeah, exactly.
Butch is thinking about the penny campaign for the Cathedral Learning.
Pass out the milk cartons.
I mean, that is what we
I want
do
the triangle
at the
tech.
library. We got campaign counsel to help guide us through the process.
And they don't do it for free.
No, they got paid,
Yeah.
and there were times we asked, can we renegotiate this a little bit? Because it was tough. It's not the easiest thing going out and asking people to give you money.
No, I understand.
Right?
Yeah, they gave that job to me, calling people on the phone.
We also got a line of credit that we used, right? And that line of credit filled gaps in the funding because what you end up having to do when you get grants is they'll give you say they're gonna give you $500,000, but you gotta pay out, give them receipts, and then they cover that, and then you go on to the next step of the process. So it's liquidity questions,
It's similar to when you have a grant
Images.
writer.
Yeah.
People
Well,
hire a grant writer.
Paul, when
they
you
get a
started with the
percentage of grant.
library, your hair was black.
I know,
And then when you started that campaign,
it got all gray.
what was left?
Yeah, there was a number of nights with no sleep trying to figure out how
I
to
mean,
do
you could
this.
get a small amount of money, but, we're looking at almost $1 million that we need.
Yeah, it would take time.
And,
It'll take a lot-
and that
yeah,
would be
right,
if we
and
go
don't
with the
have
base
that.
option.
What's that?
And that would be if I think we're kind of talking, we're going with the base option. I wouldn't necessarily, wouldn't agree with that. I kind of would tend towards, number 2 or number 3, which again, if we would, let's say we go down the route of number 3, we're talking we need 700,000, but we're gonna take out, double that amount. And that's kind of what is unsettling to me. I don't know. I would be interested to see a run of, 900.
Just the deficit numbers, maybe?
Yeah.
Total? I mean,
Yeah.
so we would say, all right, give us for 450, just rounding these up,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera.
6, yeah. I get the time crunch that we're under. And hey, I mean, listen, there's, if there's 4 votes to, go with the higher one and take out 2, I mean, it's the will of the board, but,
And I have an opposite opinion. I would go with the 875 or 809. If you're gonna do it,
The poll, you mean?
Yes.
Do it right?
Do it
Yes.
right.
I'm kind of thinking that,
Yeah,
if we're gonna make the commitment,
because people are gonna be, what, we have this after 2 years closed?
yeah.
Yeah, no,
That is gonna be the hard sell,
yeah.
after having it closed for 2 years. And we got this, you
Yeah.
know.
Right.
I like the idea that we could use the money for other programs.
and before you said anything, Bob, my opinion would be the 1.5 and not the other, the 2 or 2.5.
I mean, the only reason I went that route is, as little as we can, still getting some other things done. And it protects us in the future a little bit.
Yeah, and I get that.
I tend to agree with the 1.5. If we're gonna do the bond route, do the 1.5 and continue on trying to get the grants,
Right.
the additional monies.
And again,
We got 3 years we're gonna spend 800,000 of that right off the go, almost 900,000. So you're looking at $600,000 to spend in the next 2 years after that. We've got multiple other capital improvement projects that we
Right.
can,
Well, and that's the thing too, the capital improvement projects, like, let's just say McAnally Park, is that
Right.
something that is gonna happen?
it's
Is
in,
it something that has to
remember,
happen?
that was one that we actually put in there. It's in
Right.
there's 470,000 or whatever.
No, my question is, what are, I would like, and what are things that we have to have, right?
Oh, yeah,
So-
okay, yeah.
So,
I see what you're
tell me what the things that are gonna happen at some point anyways, because, You know, like we were looking at the council chambers, like
Right.
that might be a low priority,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What are some of our high priorities if we were to look at the 1.5 or the 2 million?
I think
I
we
mean,
all
you know,
agreed about
these-
The
I think we all
the
agreed
fencing in the back
fence.
has to
The
happen.
fence, the
Yes,
sidewalks.
All right,
And the sidewalk up front
Sidewalks and porches.
definitely has to happen, you know,
And
that,
Macanoli.
I mean, so that's, just the fence and the sidewalk alone are about 300,000.
Macanoli's
You know, so that's 1.2
Oh,
million
yeah.
right there, so you
my,
got,
my point is if these are things that we believe that we need, how far do we just keep kicking them from year to year because we say, well, we can't get it in the budget?
right, right. Or you don't, you know, we can get it in the budget without raising taxes. You know, that's, I think this buys us at least 2 years, and keeps us to that point and maybe reduces some of that. We might even push it to 3 years. You know, I haven't looked at those numbers yet, but that might be a possibility.
When
by
it came
using
to
this.
Macanoli, what were we looking to do there?
Macanoli currently has an old asphalt pad, I'll call it, that had basketball court and I believe tennis court there. I don't know when they were torn out, but that asphalt has completely dried up and deteriorated. And we were going to repurpose that asphalt area, put in a pickleball court, put in a half-court basketball court, and also
Clean the
improve.
shoulder up a little
Yeah,
bit.
walking trail, and Jason, do you have that OPC, what was all in there?
That walking trail wouldn't be real big, I mean,
No,
about a block
no,
and a half.
and we were gonna
Well-
improve, there's no parking to begin with, but there's
Yeah.
a little, I'll call it a gravel hammerhead turnaround.
Yeah,
Improve that area a little bit,
yeah.
along with
Because
the
that
paving.
came up last night. You know, I was told that there was a basketball court. Everybody visualizes something different. When you say basketball court, I'm looking at a full court. And the person said, council took it out. Well, I've been on council 8 years, and I never voted to take that out.
Yeah,
No,
So
I
that
don't think
happened.
anybody voted for it to go out, I think
No.
like Bob said, it just
yeah,
deteriorated.
yeah,
There hasn't been anything there since I've been here.
yeah, I mean,
5.5 years.
I've been here
Yeah.
as long as, you know, longer than you by a year, and same thing, it's, there, I've never known anything there other than a
I'm
flat.
again,
64, I've
people
lived
make-
on Porsche for 64 years, and I remember that park for 64 years, and I remember that being like that for 64 years.
Oh, there you go.
Well, see, I believe you,
That
boys,
has
because
never been
you
updated.
recognize somebody
Yeah.
from 15 years ago, you know, so I would have to say, yeah, you're probably right. But
So-
again, people make comments
Yeah.
without thinking
No.
about what you're saying.
Yeah,
You know,
No, I
council
agree.
did away with it. I get so tired of hearing council does away with all kind of things. Not since I've been here.
The security fence is in the 25 budget.
It is, we applied for a grant,
Right,
but
right,
if we
right.
don't, and
That's one of those.
just to
ones we
remind you, we
don't
applied
get.
for, just to go down that grant route, we applied for a grant for, I believe it was $500,000 GEDTF for the pool. We
Right.
got $50,000.
Right.
So
Yeah.
this could be a similar type, you know, they'll give you money, but do they give you all of it?
Right.
You know, are we gonna get half of it? Are we gonna get the grant? So this allows, this affords us for the fact to, right now, that money, if we didn't get it, we did have it in the budget to put that in. This is money then we could use out of that budget, we could push to other items that we don't,
Right.
you know,
Right.
that may or may not come up, or we may need to improve upon other things.
The cost associated with that, matched a grant request, was $237,000. In the history of that grant program, I think the maximum grant I've seen is about 100.
Yeah,
So, I mean, we've got,
At least-
Baldwin's got several rounds of $50,000, so looking at that crystal ball, that grant source.
Best case, we get 100,000, we're 130,000 short on that.
Yeah.
the other thing too is we push Macanati Park back a year, and we push back 2 years. Now that 400,000 goes to 500,000.
Yeah.
Or 550.
Right,
Or
but-
some of the other
right.
projects, I think.
But we were okay with that a month ago when we
We
passed
were.
the budget. You
We
know,
were,
and,
but-
and that's
We
what's,
were,
that's why
but-
this
We didn't have
conversation.
this
No, I agree,
information.
but we have
Well,
an
we could have
option now
always
that
went
we-
to the banks. I
Yeah.
mean, the banks are always there.
Well,
You know,
true.
and that's
Yeah,
why,
they
and
want
I get it. I just, I guess I find it ironic that, you know, we need 800,000 and now we're talking about, well, we might as well do this, we might as well do that, we might as well do this. But,
In my
That's
mind,
just
I'm
my
not
opinion.
saying we may as well, I'm saying could we? Does it make sense? Conversation, I truly see your
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
I do. I understand it, and I, like, go down your road too, 'cause plus you're a swell guy, Elliot, I like you.
and I used to play at that Macanaldi courts.
Yeah.
There were some courts there, there was a hoop.
There was.
and- Yeah.
There
So-
was, yeah.
When do we have to make a decision on this?
In 10 minutes.
Well, we gotta make
Because we
it,
need it for Tuesday, right? Because we need to award a contract Tuesday, correct?
we have to at least award the mechanical contract,
Okay.
award or reject the mechanical contract on Tuesday.
Hey, Bob, just out of here, I mean, so if you go this route with 1.5 or whatever, how long does it, you know, take to go through all the paperwork?
April, May, it'll be April, May, before we have the
That's,
money.
you're good with that, you and Caitlin?
Yes, yes, that'll, even if the contract starts and everything, we have, you know, the monies up front to at least pay what the beginning of that contract would entail. So yeah, April, May is fine. I can, again, just to, you know, at least entertain some of the, items that Mr. Elliott brought up. Or Mr. Elliott, Mr.
We know what you meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The, you know, maybe we'll at least look at the $900,000, you know, do the $900,000 and then go the next route, but, you know, the $700,000. I could see if she could get us that information before the meeting next week. and I
We'd
could-
be foolish not to look at that option, really.
I would really want to.
But I think
Yeah,
the
it should be.
900 and the 700,000 isn't gonna be too far of a spread in whatever the percentage is.
Sure.
It's just what are the debt service repayments gonna be.
Right.
So I could at least go that route, we'll look at the, you know, what those numbers are, for those two.
And then you'll just email us, or will we meet
Well,
beforehand to discuss?
I think I could email if she gets it to me before Tuesday night, if not, you know, if she gets it to me on Tuesday.
Give her a deadline, Bob.
See, Elliot, there's a couple different ways we could look at this. We have a very fiscally responsible leader. Because some leaders would have said, why don't we start at 2.5, 4, and 5, right?
Yeah, sure, sure.
I appreciate that, but, you know, I live here too, so yes. No, it makes sense to try and look at, to see what we, you know, what should we reach for and what do we need to utilize.
Yeah, the repayment cycle on this, if you look at 2025 and you go down to 2036, the difference in debt service in 2036 is $62,000 more than we're paying right now.
But if you look at 2035, what the debt service was,
Right,
or would have been, it would have been 1.6. It was
Right.
gonna go down 200,000.
Right.
Instead of it going down, all it did was stay the same.
right.
So you're looking at what that cost would be, but it keeps them all very steady, and then it decreases technically in 2040.
In 20, yeah, in
So
2040 it
basically,
drops.
it stays, the repayment, debt service stays the same the entire length of that. If you look, it's all 171717 all the way down.
No,
until
if you're gonna
Yeah.
finance this, this is the way to do it,
Yeah.
and that's exactly probably, you know, it doesn't get like this overnight. It's from past deals where they build it in so that there are those steps so that you can add those on, and then
Yes.
5
Right.
years, 10 years later, you can add another chunk on.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah, they anticipate that. I guarantee they do.
So have we made a decision?
Well, he's gonna get us a little more information.
But before that, I think, you know,
And I'll just say, I mean, if it's the will of the board, if the base option is what you wanna go and the information doesn't change, I mean, you know, you can certainly make that decision now if you'd like. I would just be curious to see, you know, what those look like. And she could say, you know, hey, that's not gonna work, whatever, but.
and
But I agree. You want to see it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
for
that's the
yourself.
responsible
if
thing.
we
to do.
get those numbers, at least then you'll be able to say, okay, we'll do base option, we'll do option 3, and then we'll borrow X, you know, next week. So one way or another, I'm gonna put on the agenda for, consideration the award of contract PK 1 and PK 2. And then that way, we'll have that discussion, at least we'll have, hopefully have the numbers for that. If for some reason she can't get me those numbers, I don't see why she couldn't. She took a little longer to get us these after the last meeting because, you know, obviously the holidays and everything. So I said, no worries. I says, we're not gonna have the discussion until tonight anyway, so that's why she got me in on the 6th. You know, we did talk to her probably about 2 days after the last meeting in December. So I don't see why she can't get me those numbers, you know, for, you know, maybe the end of this week even. And then I can include that in an email to everybody, and then that'll give you the ability to have that, you know, we'll end up having a little bit of a discussion next week versus, you know, just a true voting discussion.
So then if we go this route, we have to decide then what package we like.
I think one more point to the discussion. Patty, you and Bob made a point that the residents are gonna wait 2 years and this is all we got in the poll. So if we look at that type of thinking, and I agree, we all know also, and please believe me, I'm not just stumping for a pickleball court at McEnany Park. But I believe more people will use a pickleball court in Baldwin than will use a swimming pool.
Look at the number
I
of
agree
injuries
with
that
you,
happen there.
because that's the big thing right now.
It is.
And just to give you a quick, you know, side note on that, Randy already had discussion with the neighbors over there. I don't know if you've seen on the news the noise
Yeah.
factor for
from the
pickleball. He told them what was going on and they were fine with that. Now, there might be somebody of 4 or 5 houses down that they may hear it, but at least the immediate neighbors are okay with
They can
the
use it too.
pickleball. Because I don't know if there is a,
I have never.
Yeah.
it's pretty annoying.
But here's one other point, and that's a consideration, right, to
Yes.
take in mind. But there was a basketball court there, and they heard the basketball.
Dribbling.
Yeah, that
and
would make noise.
Dribbling, and the kids.
According to everybody else, though, we're 64 years ago.
64 years ago.
Yeah, they really didn't basketball that much.
But I
They
didn't
passed
finish my
it
point
more.
yet. So Patty and Bob made a point, we waited 2 years for this. So if we're looking at perception of the residents, and you faced it last night, John, and you just said it before, we're gonna put all the money over the north end, what are we doing on the south end?
We
when
can't
we have an
control the
opportunity.
layout of the borough, it's been
But-
like this.
But
We just
Matt,
talked about perception of the pool
Yeah, it's-
and what the
perception.
residents were gonna get. Alls I'm saying is it's a perception
that's reality.
that, exactly.
Yeah, that's what people will believe, yeah.
I'm just adding to the discussion.
But it's not like
Plus,
we're building a
personally-
new pole here.
Plus, when
Personally,
people
like,
say
it's
do
in
everything in the
here.
north, I say, yeah.
I'm probably
Move up
not
there.
gonna use the pool. I might use the pickleball court, but probably not a lot, right? I mean, but for the residents, I think more residents are gonna use the pickleball court.
I think you're right, and
Well, if we
then,
go this route, we can do both.
Right.
Well, that's part of what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. I agree with your point,
Yeah.
Elliot, 100%, but I think we need to have an open mind all the way
it's,
around.
it's more or less like,
I do agree, we need to look at the lower option too.
We do.
well, and a lot of things, people like to compare what they have in Upper St. Clair
Oh, we can't
as to
compare
what they
apples and
have
oranges.
in
Oh,
Baldwin.
yeah.
You get so much more. But what they fail to realize is Baldwin Borough is a bedroom community. It's 3-bedroom, 1 bath, 1 car garage for the most part, and working class people. You know, so this is what, where you live, this is what you have. Now, you want all of that, but you want it brought here, you can't afford it. And they don't want to hear that. Then they look at you like you're ridiculing them and belittling them, when you're not.
No.
You're just trying to be realistic with them. That, yeah, I agree, they got a lot over there, but they have a lot more to work with.
Madam President, that concludes the engineer's report.
Thank you, Mr. Stan.
Well, we only on your report.
Yeah.
We have all
No,
this
we went
other to go.
backwards. We went backwards, so we're good.
I don't know, I
Okay,
was
so-
here yesterday.
We all know what to expect for
Thank
next
you,
week.
Mr. Stanton, that's a one heck of
thank
a
you.
report.
Yeah, it was a little rough.
Okay, moving on to Parks and Recreation with Mrs. Boyer.
Thank you, Madam President. I will give my report next week. And Ms. Corey Huff, if you'd like to give your report.
Thank you, Ms. Boyer. Just a few things for you guys tonight. The Baldwin Kiwanis holiday event was successful. We had a lot of kids here, a lot of pictures with Santa. It was nice to see some of you there, so thank you for stopping by. The gingerbread decorating contest, we had a few entries, but we did get our 2 top winners, number 2 and 3. So I think having it at the event, we did get a lot of votes, so it was really nice to have a lot of physical votes this year as well as online. Letters to Santa, the partnership with Whitehall, we did get 103 letters to Santa this year and hoping to get even more next year. So we will be partnering with them again to do that. Community Day planning has started. It will be Saturday, June 14th, the second Saturday in June. I'll have some stuff drawn up for you guys for next meeting about potentially changing the event for the agenda, maybe shortening the hours, doing something a little different. Bob and I have looked at other communities, and their community days are not expanding throughout the entire day. They do like shorter segments. So we're gonna look at doing something different, potentially hour-wise, to capture more residents and maybe keep them here longer.
Yeah, it
for
tends
the
to be like
That's a good idea.
right after the race, there's usually a quick burst and then a lull until the evening hour.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So more to come on that with some of the research we've done about timing. The Easter egg hunt will happen again this year with the Easter Bunny photos. That'll be Saturday, April 5th. Sorry, that's not on the agenda, but I talked to our partners at the library in Kiwanis today, and they're on board for that date. So we'll advertise for Community Day and the Easter event in the in-community that will come out in March. So
Very good.
that's all I have for you guys today. Any questions?
Just have a comment, I came for the holiday festival, it was really, really nice.
It was.
It was.
I
was
loved
packed.
the little picture frames that they had to put the pictures in from Santa, that was a really nice touch.
Yeah,
And the
Kristen-
popcorn was awesome.
And that caricature.
She was very good, yes. She does an amazing
Wow.
job, very quickly too. She
You had a
does
lot
great
of
work.
volunteers for the,
Yeah.
We did, we had a lot of students from, I believe, the National Honor Society volunteered to come, so thanks to the high
It
school
was,
for
I
getting
think,
that out
bigger
for
than
us.
it has been.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot bigger.
It was a lot of fun.
It was.
really was.
Yeah.
Yes, Kiwanis does a really nice
True
job.
winter
and
weather too.
Thank you for
Yeah.
letting us work with them on that.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
Did Santa get my letter?
He did.
Yeah,
you
what
not
did
get
they
what
do
you
with
did?
the
Randy
letters?
asked for
Did
snow,
they
you
read
got
the
it,
bill
Randy.
or-
sunshine leaf on it.
Yeah, they read them and then
Snow
they,
is salt.
Santa sent them a letter back.
Oh, really?
So kids got responses back from the North Pole,
Very
yes.
good, very good.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Good, good, good.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
thank you, Madam
Thank
President.
you, Corey.
Thank you.
Okay,
Madam President, I just have a quick question on the blanket list. Bob, can you just explain to me, just so I'm clear, so for the municipal building, for the no fee for the Women's Club, Historical Society, and BWAA, but then there's a request for the Democratic organization, is that because there's requests needed for political organizations?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And that-
Typically, the political organizations, end up, paying whatever, but the nonprofits, we usually, get them.
And is that,
That has been-
what dictates the no fee? Is a nonprofit, or, like if
Nonprofit, it depends on, is it all, because there might be a nonprofit come in that are not, hey, I live in the borough and I'm setting up a group of my coworkers or whatever, it's a nonprofit organization. We try to make it's got to be mostly Baldwin residents, for the use of the facilities.
So like if I want to rent it, or I guess use it for, Bachelors of Baldwin, right, like a meeting, would I have to pay
Yes.
a waiver?
Yes,
Okay. And is that's up to?
pay a fee, not a waiver.
Or
They
pay a fee, rather, okay. And that's up to your discretion of deciding which,
We go by past practices of what the boroughs use, and we bring it to council, for,
Right.
your consideration as well. You're like, it's a little shady, no.
Okay. Just wanted to
No,
make sure I
not that the
understand.
bachelors are shady.
It's actually not a bad idea, that's what I'm thinking.
Oh, there you go.
I don't see any in here, so.
Okay, if nothing else for Parks and Rec, we'll move on, thank you, Mrs. Boyer, to zoning and planning with Mr. Egger.
Thank you, Madam President. We had 101 permits issued for December 2024, bringing our year-to-date to 685. for a total of $21,121.50 for December. Now, for year-to-date, it was $153,028.86. And that concludes my report unless somebody has a question.
Madam President, I do have a question. For the Leland Point, the occupancy permits, is that an annual item that they have to get an occupancy every year? Is that why there
Yes,
were so
yes,
many? Okay,
yes.
okay. And do they just typically do that at the end of the, at the end of the year?
I do believe that's the way they typically run it, yes.
Okay,
Hang on a second.
thank you. That's all, Madam President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ramba. If nothing else for Mr. Egger, we'll move on to public safety with Mr. D.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to give my report next week, because I don't have everything gathered yet, so.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. D. Moving on to personnel with Marianne Conley.
No report this week.
Nothing for her. Next up then is,
Did anybody in here call 911 by accident?
In here?
They're on the way for a chest pain patient here at the station somewhere. and we can't
That's
find
not
them
me.
outside everywhere. Eric just walked
That
past.
wasn't me.
He was sweeping.
Nobody has a,
yeah, I
nobody
saw
has
him
a.
standing over there.
No, I didn't.
Not on purpose.
Chest pain?
That
Nothing
pool
showed.
Nobody called,
discussion
right?
was
No,
going a
No,
little long for me,
correct.
so I figured I'd spice things up a little bit, sorry, yeah.
Okay, moving on then to audience agenda. Anyone in the audience? No audience, probably due to the weather. I would like to make a motion, or can I have a motion to go into executive session, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go into executive session. Any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye. Bless you.
Bless you.
All those opposed? Hearing none. Okay, motion carries. We'll take like a 2.5-minute recess and then come back for executive session.
This was all great
Set a
conversation,
timer.
by the way.